thank you for watching the forum. I'm your host, Ashley Tate, here with my co-host, Christy Largent. And today we are speaking to veterans, which is something near and dear to my heart. And today we're talking to Pam Dahl. She is the founder of the Nick Dahl Memorial Fund. And I'm so interested to hear, I want to share what you're doing. It's very interesting, very powerful. So tell us who Nick Dahl is. Let's start there.
Thank you. Nick Dahl is my son. He passed away a little about 2.5 years ago, but before that he grew up here in Redding, went to local schools. At 12 years old, fell in love with golf. So every day of the summer he was at the local golf courses, and he was very active in junior golf here locally. At 17, right before his 18th birthday, Nick left for the Army. He ended up, after boot camp and infantry training, was stationed in Hawaii, and he was on a striker unit in Hawaii. He was right away deployed to Iraq, and he was in Sadr City, Baghdad, in really heavy combat. He was there for about 14 months, and then when he returned to Hawaii, he started having problems with PTSD, traumatic brain injury. He was diagnosed there by the Army physicians as very severe PTSD and severe traumatic brain injury. Started not sleeping at night, having personality issues, just a lot of the things that go along, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression that goes along with PTSD and traumatic brain injury. He ended up coming home September of 2010, and our family, we went through 4 years of trying to get help for him, trying to get him into the programs that the VA has for PTSD and traumatic brain injury, and not successful at getting him into the treatment.
And why wasn't that successful?
We were told a few different times that his PTSD was too severe for the residential programs.
So the person that needed it the most couldn't get the help because he was too severe.
Right. So the options were like a psychiatric hospital where they just basically drug them up and put them back on the streets. Our family, all of us tried having him in our homes and taking care of him and stuff, but we are not the experts in that field of how to deal with the issues.
Wow. Wow, what was that like for you when you were trying to get services for him? I mean, you're a professional woman.
It was very frustrating. I don't know honestly how the veterans who don't have family to help them with the phone calls, with the appointments, how they manage the system. We wrote letters, we made phone calls, we even went through our congressman's offices. Wally Herger was awesome. He and his staff, they were great help. But Nick would go through spurts where he would be stable enough and try to get into treatment, and then even go through the orientation phases of treatment and then get turned away because it was so severe.
That is just so wrong.
It is, but I think people also don't understand that those phases are short-lived, and so that's why it's tough for people to get out and get a stable job or to take care of themselves, because I mean truly traumatic brain injury, it's
like number one, they don't sleep at night, and they're up all night long, even with nightmares or hearing things or paranoia. That all goes along with the PTSD.
And as a veteran, I mean, I think, and being there in Germany and seeing the people come from Afghanistan and from those war times, I think it's a really sad thing that we have these people who are going, and fighting for us and having these PTSD issues, and they can not get the help they need.
Exactly.
I mean, as severe.
It's a travesty.
It is. I mean, the more severe, I feel like those are the people even you should be focusing on the most and putting services into.
My son would not have made it through 5 minutes of boot camp had he gone in the way he came home.
Yeah, exactly. No.
He literally couldn't. He arrived at the Redding airport and couldn't walk out in the parking lot because he had MRSA. Came home with MRSA. That's rampant in the military. He came home with that so bad, was hospitalized numerous times with that.
Is that a staph infection? MRSA.
Yeah, it's a resistant.
He came home with that?
Came home with that. Both feet and legs were huge, swollen, and every time he would get the flu or be that would come
flare
back,
up,
and
yeah.
he would end
Oh
up
my gosh.
hospitalized for several days every time.
And that's scary because you have it in your home.
Right,
So,
right, which
you know,
is contagious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
When did so? I wish we could talk elaborately about all this, but we got to compact it. So what happened then? Like he failed.
Nick went up to Medford. He was sent up there to try to get into a VA program up in the Medford area. Was told that he needed to live in the area and show stability and do outpatient treatment. And so he bounced around up there a little bit, ended up passing away in the Medford area due to complications associated with PTSD and traumatic brain injury. So after the first year went by of our family, thank you, of our family coping with that, and the 1-year anniversary was very difficult. So, and October was Nick's birthday and also the month he passed away. So when we approached the 2-year anniversary, we started thinking about what we could do to make maybe the month a little bit easier, and so we decided to start the golf tournament to try to give something back to veterans like Nick who are suffering, try to help provide housing. We met with Brad Long of the Veterans Resource Center to find out what the needs are locally as far as housing and how we could help local veterans. And he said the veterans who have zero income are the ones that they can't really get into their housing because they need to be able to at least cover their utilities and a little bit of rent. So we decided to start our tournament and try to raise funds to sponsor those veterans and get them off the streets.
So I love that because you took a tragedy and you know, you guys work so hard. I mean, I really, as a family, I think that's a very inspirational story that you stuck with him. And then you took that, and then you took something he really loved to do, which is golfing. Yeah. And now you're sharing that and making others happy.
So what happened with your first tournament?
Yeah, how much money?
Our first tournament was wonderful. We had so many local businesses and individuals who contributed. We ended up earning $15,000. We had great raffle prizes donated, and just based on what we brought in, we earned $15,000. It has so far housed 10 veterans since the tournament. 3 of those have gone on and obtained employment and moved out into their own housing, but right now there's 7 living in the local Veterans Resource home that we're sponsoring.
So about how much does that cost per veteran? Like, if you had to break it down, how much would it cost per veteran to house them for, how long has it been, 6 months, you say?
I'm not quite sure. They go on a monthly basis, so there are several veterans there for several months.
Yes, so. That's fantastic though. I think that's such a great
That's so
program.
inspirational. So the goals were to raise money, I'm guessing.
Right.
And then is this going to be an annual event?
It is. We've recently, our fund has been taken over by the Shasta Regional Community Foundation. Fantastic. So we are one of their funds now. They're managing that for us, so that's a very positive thing. We are planning our next golf tournament for September 23rd of this year, and hopefully to be as successful, if not more, than this past one. We're also hoping that if things go well and we can keep gaining on what we did this past year, to maybe expand how we can help local veterans, like maybe emergency car repairs or emergency overnight housing if those needs come up.
So what does someone have to do to be a part of the golf tournament? How much does it cost to get started for registration?
We are only charging the golfers $40 per golfer.
Oh, wow.
And that's we use Churn Creek Golf Course, which is where Nick, when he was after the military, when he was going through some stable months, he would golf there and made some good friends there, and they have been wonderful to us. So we are, it'll include the 9 holes of golf and also a barbecue meal afterwards. Last time it was a dinner. We'll probably do a lunch this year.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so neat. Well, I think it's such an inspiration because so often we bellyache about what's wrong and the problems, and then we don't do anything about it. We just complain.
Yeah.
And you have really put some positive results from a really big tragedy in your life, and it's really inspirational.
We're trying to do something that we know. Nick was very generous, and he would help people when he saw them down and out, and I know he would want our family to do something, give something back. So, thank you.
So if somebody were thinking of, like, they have their own negative thing and they thought, I want to make something positive out of this, what would you recommend they do? Their steps would be?
I would recommend, I guess, look, like if you've lost someone that's dear to you, look at what was dear to their heart and what they would believe strongly in. And it has really been healing for our family. It's been a positive thing for us to focus on. And we could literally, at the tournament, we could feel Nick there with us. We could feel his presence and knew he was proud. And to just carry on his memory in a positive way.
What's been, we have like 2 minutes, but what has been the most difficult part of obviously not losing your son, but working through the golf tournament? Because that's like real positive, but I could imagine there were probably some difficulties.
As far as putting the tournament on itself, there weren't really any difficulties. It went really well. We had a lot of volunteers, a lot of people really, like I said, local businesses stepped up and donated all the food. We didn't have to pay for any of the food.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so we had a lot of local help.
No negatives.
The thing I think that's so interesting, though,
about a lot of time, a lot of energy, but it was all worth it. Yeah.
But I love that you've taken something that the person who could have used the help the most, you're now helping those people.
Right.
You know, and I think that's such a full circle.
Yeah. I don't want what Nick went through, if we can keep any other veterans from going through that and suffering that way and losing their life to it, then we've succeeded. If we can help one veteran get off the
how
streets.
can people help you?
They can email Pam IN Redding at att.net. They can call 530-227-7808 or go on the Shasta Regional Community Foundation website.
We had the Community Fund on a couple shows ago,
Right.
So our viewers are familiar with them.
Yeah.
Pam, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
It's
Thank
a
you.
hard topic. What a joy to get to hear about what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thanks
having
for
me.
watching. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Hi, we're back, and we're back with the second half of our veteran stories, and we are here with Dorothy Huff. She is a World War II POW, prisoner of war, and I think you look pretty good for being a prisoner of war at some point in your life.
Thank you.
But it is very interesting, your story, and it's exciting to share. So tell us a little bit about how this even got started. Like what was happening during that time?
We were on the island of Mindanao. That's a southern island of the Philippines, and my folks were missionaries.
Okay.
And when the war started, I can remember my mother standing by the radio when it said war had started, tears running down her cheeks. We were so far away from home. And the military that happened to be there on our, which is a town, said, go inland. Take as much food as you can and go inland. And so that's what we had to do. We were in there for maybe about 6 months, hiding around, and leaflets were, the Japanese had landed on the Philippines, another area. There's 100 and some islands in the Philippines, okay? And so the leaflet said, if any Americans are found without, in other words, surrendering, we'll shoot you right off. And so the military said we have to surrender. So that's an experience in itself.
Yes.
Where we were living among the Moro, what do you call them, Moro tribe, and some of them wanted to keep us women there.
Wow.
And they had the good and the bad. And anyhow, it was a story in itself. But we did surrender, and they took us all the way down to Davao, the southern part of Mindanao. And from there, we had to go by boat clear up to Manila. And it was a 10-day trip. They put us in the cargo ship. They made it so that you could just sit or lie down. And no water hardly at all for 10 days. Anyhow, we got up to Manila and we were put in Santa Tomas camp, which there were over 4,000 there.
Were they all Americans?
They were all Americans, yes. And we were there, and then we heard, my dad had heard that the Japanese were building some barracks out in Los Banos, Philippines, and that was about 50 miles away. And so my dad put his name in so that we could be together, our family, because they had in Santa Tomas, the men were in one building, and it was a university. They were 3 stories high, you know, and the women in another. So we all went out to Los Banos, and we were there until we were rescued.
So what is the time frame?
Well, we were down on the island of Mindanao, I think, for about possibly, I would say about a year or so. We were put in the first camp was called Happy Life Blues. It was a cabaret.
Oh my gosh.
And our where we had to stay was 11 by 14, our family.
How many?
5 of us, a sister and a brother and my mom and dad, 11 by 14. And it was just chalk line division. No curtains, no nothing.
Oh my gosh.
That was where we stayed for about a year and about a little
Before
over a
they
year.
marched you up to
before
Manila,
we were taken
by
by
ship.
boat up, yeah,
I
cargo
keep forgetting,
ship.
Philippines
Yeah.
is all water.
Yes,
Oh.
yes.
So cargo
Islands.
hold for 10 days.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
amazing.
Yeah, hardly any water. That was bad.
Yeah, and you were how old when all this happened?
I was 11 when we started out. I was the youngest of our family.
Oh my
And
and then you got up to Manila, and then you worked your way over to Los Banos.
Los Banos.
Your dad arranged that, thankfully.
Yeah, but
Yes.
it wasn't, I mean, was it a true arrangement? I mean,
You
what
just-
was that set, what was that set up like? Because
they had a sheet of paper, whoever wanted to go out there, families wanted to go. And so my dad put his name in right away that we could go out there.
So the Japanese weren't running this was...
Oh yes, the Japanese.
Japanese were-
Oh yes, oh yes. They had taken over Manila, and that's why it was a university, and they had all the Americans that were in there, over 4,000.
Yes.
Now in our camp there were 2,147 of us when we were rescued.
So half the number that had been in Manila. I guess what the disconnect is, you think, how can you arrange to go to another camp when you're a prisoner of war?
Yes.
Right? I mean, I think the most recent information I've read on prisoners of war in World War II in Philippines is unbroken.
Oh,
and
yes,
Louis
yes.
Zamperini was treated
Terribly.
viciously.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So was that your experience
Well,
with
yes.
the Japanese?
I think the worst thing you can do is to be on a starvation diet.
Yes.
And the little amount of rice that they would give us, you know, it was kind of bad. I will say that when we landed in Santa Tomas, which was up in Manila, before we were moved to Los Banos, the Red Cross gave us a kit. And that was the only kit that we had ever gotten. In it was a can of peanuts, corned beef, a few things like that. And my dad said, and this was about a year or so, a year and a half before we were rescued, you know, the food, it's awful, but we just got to go easy on it. So he would open up a can of peanuts, give us five, you know. Anyhow, there's a God, that's all I can say.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, what kept you sane during that time? I mean, how did it affect your family?
I had parents that said, if God still has a job for us to do, He'll see that we get out.
Oh my God.
And that's what we have to do. Every day we would pray. And then thank God, well, we still can breathe. You know, we have to trust. At least that's how I feel. Trust in God, you know.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
So how did you get moved out to Los Banos?
They took us by truck out there.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you. Go ahead, Christy.
No,
I know
I'm
you had
just
a
curious.
question
How
burning.
did you live on Los Banos then?
In Los Banos, they had a committee together, and they tried to have, like, my mom, women, they had, I don't know where they got this thread, but the poor men, there were men there that their pants were getting loose on them.
Yes.
Right.
And I thought I would just show you one picture here that I have.
Oh my goodness.
And this shows you, I don't know whether it can be seen,
Just if we just hold it up like this.
that it can be seen how they, our poor men were when we were rescued.
And that was after being on the island for a year and a half?
Well, we
That
were
part?
totally, this was after 3 years of being in prison camp. That's how they were. So we were on a starvation diet. So they lost their, what should I say, their adipose tissue.
Yes.
So you had to the women had to try to sew up the men, their pants.
Yeah.
And then they had a crew that tried to cook, and then they had various. My dad and my brother were put on they had land out there, and they got permission from the Japanese. Can we try to grow something? Well, there were squash leaves that they grew, and we ate squash leaves, and they were kind of fuzzy. And I remember my sister and I, we were going behind, a Japanese was walking, and they were peeling an orange. And my sister and I saw it thrown in the garbage, and as soon as he went around the corner, we grabbed it.
The peels.
Yeah. And my dad was looking up at a plane once, and the Japanese came and slapped him on the ear. We thought it had broken his eardrums. But we have to say there was a rescue. We had 54 Amtraks come across the lake and into 20 mile, territory of the Japanese, and 9 planes with paratroopers dropping on the 23rd of February. And I called Brigadier General Mueller, who was the one that gave all the information here about the military. I call him every year, and I call him on his birthday and say, thank you. We couldn't be alive unless it was what you had done to rescue us.
Okay, I'm going to capture this scene again. Wow. The Amtrak came down the tracks.
Well, the Amtraks are across the river, the lake. They can walk. They can roll on the ground, and then they go right into the water.
Oh, okay.
But we learned a lot.
Wow.
We learned a lot, and that is to trust in God and to take one day at a time, and also to be positive about things. You can be negative, and you have to be positive, and also to forgive, but not to forget what our military have done. Freedom. People don't know what freedom's all about.
Yeah, and I love your quote here. It says, no one knows what freedom is all about until you've actually lost it.
Absolutely.
And that is so true.
We want to show this book because you brought this book along. What is this?
This is called A Rescue at Los Banos, and it tells all about how it came about, how Brigadier General Mueller got the information together and to get us out.
So I just want to add one thing on that, because I'm going to probably get this from my husband.
Yes.
But the thing I want to say is that you were explaining that Brigadier
General
Mueller is 100 years old.
Yes.
And you talked
April 7th, he will be 100 years old.
April 7th. And it's just an amazing story, and he's the person that gave this first-hand account for this book.
Oh, yes.
So
absolutely.
she didn't write this book. You're not promoting.
No.
I know. I just want to let people know you're not promoting this book because you wrote it. You're promoting it because it's an accurate account.
If you want to know what happened in World War II to some Americans, this is a great story.
Yes.
We're out of time.
Oh, wow.
I can't believe it.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. What a treat to have her on as we wrap up this show about the interesting thing, the veterans.
Yes.
And
well, we're off the air.
Almost.
Excuse
we want
me.
to say thank you for watching the forum. It's always interesting, isn't it? That's because we are about interesting people doing interesting things. Thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next time.